Live streaming of SDR News coverage at HP Discover has been made possible by Intel Corporation. Check out Intel Open Port IT, where you can connect with your peers at Intel on industry topics, best practices, strategies, and more. And by Microsoft, where HP and Microsoft are working together, combining their respective strengths to deliver innovative technologies to help advance your business.
Hey, welcome back to our coverage here at HP Discover. I'm Andy McCaskey from SDRNews, joined by another Andy Tryba from Intel. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, very, very glad to catch you before you have your main presentation a little bit later on in the conference here. And I think, Intel is so much a part of our lives, but very specifically, we're talking about bring your own device and what Intel is doing to help enterprises to take advantage and kind of also align to the expectations that people have. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting trend that we've been seeing over multi-years now on not only bring your own smartphones and tablets, but also even some people are, of course, choosing to bring your own PCs. And when you think about the bring your own problem, certainly you have the security and manageability that you need to infuse into these platforms. What's even more important is from you and I, a business end user perspective and the productivity that we can actually do with these devices now and how we actually make that simpler for folks.
Mm-hmm. Well, but we have expectations. We expect the instant on. You don't want to have to go through a boot sequence. So you want access to your information or to reference things or to take action.
Yeah, exactly right. So you don't want all this stuff to get in your way. And it's amazing now that we have all these devices around us, but at times, at least to me, it feels like they're not really helping me. It feels like I have to actually do more work to even keep all of these things synchronized and even enter in all these passwords. So what you see now is that people just stop doing it, right? So passwords, for example, the world's most popular password in the world is 1234556.
Yeah.
Followed by 12345, followed by password, right? And people are doing this just because it's just so cumbersome to have to log in and do all of these things. So some of the technology that we're working on is to make that seamless. So why can't your devices know you, visually see you, know that you have a couple of your devices with you, so it brings up the authentication layer even higher.
I hear this and I love the gadgetry aspect of it, but you can see so many scenarios where your fingers are sweaty or your fingers aren't sweaty enough, or there's the lighting is different. There are so many technical challenges to being able to implement this sort of recognition reliably.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that's also one of the beauties of actually embedding it into the hardware itself, is that you can now start bringing in multiple sensors to raise your overall authentication. Mm-hmm. So, the examples that you mentioned on the facial side of the world, you're right. Sometimes there's a bright light behind you, or sometimes there's some jet engines behind you, or whatever it may be, that they don't work reliably. So now you need to go to multiple contexts. So, hey, by the way, you have your phone and your tablet and your PC next to each other. Why can't all three of those communicate to raise the authentication level up? Or, it knows that you're inside of the office, for example. There's different expectations you can actually do by embedding that actually into the hardware itself.
So I understand that Intel has released a device that's really intended for Internet of Things. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. So at Fall IDF this year, we announced a Quark device. And what we were trying to do with Quark is really get out there and embed intelligence in all of the things around you, right? So certainly you see where people are innovating today on watches and glasses and the like, but we envision a future where all the things around you actually have this embedded intelligence, and you're going to be interacting with all of them.
But you have to have enough processor power. You can't have a low-powered microcontroller sort of thing. It's not quite enough
exactly
processing power to be able to do things useful.
Exactly right. Is you really want to have that level of performance as well as sensor network to be able to interact with the other devices that you have. Mm-hmm. So the example that I commonly give is around conference rooms, for example. Why is it that when I walk into the conference room that it has no idea that I even walked into this conference room. I have to connect all these wires, and maybe I forgot the thing that connects to the thing, right? So why can't all of that actually know that I am who I am? I walked into this conference room, and with the embedded intelligence, the smart whiteboards, and then the what have you, that we can actually get real work done.
Well, and the interactivity between work groups that are distributed.
Exactly.
And mobile, which brings us to the role that tablets are beginning to play. Is just revolutionary, but at the same time, not enough horsepower to do the work that you might need to do.
Yeah, no, it's actually fascinating. As we've seen this new creation, this new market of tablets emerge, we've seen the continual and exponential need for more and more performance, and the interactions that you're actually wanting to do on this device now are actually converging a lot to what you do on the PC side. So you get a lot of that portability, but at times you do want to dock it and do your presentations or email and things like that. And that's why we're actually driving hard on this two-in-one direction, as you might have seen in the industry.
Well, and then the flexibility that you have in the accessibility in the tablet mode.
Exactly right.
Where you can get to something very, very, very quickly.
Exactly right. Where you don't want to have to compromise. You want to be able to have the best of both worlds. And the beauty is that as these things get smaller and smaller, and the intelligence inside of them continues to ramp with Moore's law, you can now get more and more creativity, more so than all that you've seen in the industry as a whole.
Okay. So, but the objective still has to be minimizing the cost of ownership over the life cycle in an enterprise environment. How does this two-in-one address that specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you're absolutely right. When you go and speak to CIOs of the world, there's not a conversation that doesn't get back to, hey, I need to make sure that the TCO is there. And one of the things that we're excited about in this two-in-one realm is that rather than having to buy two devices, it's actually significantly cheaper, not only from the hardware level to obviously buy one, which is trivial, but all of the other manageability costs of, if you have two devices on one of them, perhaps you have to either manage it separately or you have to throw an MDM on it, or what about all the software, you having to have two versions of software versus one. So by converging into one device that kind of acts as the best of both worlds there, the TCO equation is actually about $1,000 per refresh cycle less than if you had to go and buy two of these devices.
Back to the usability aspects of devices, what seems to be just like so easy to do that turns out when you have to implement it enterprise-wide is really, really hard?
Yeah, that's another great question. So one of the technologies that we actually launched this year was actually wireless display for enterprises that we call Pro WiDi. And this is actually a technology that we launched 3 years ago on the consumer side, but it took us a long time to really implement it on the enterprise side. Because really you get, if you think about an enterprise environment, you get massive densities, whereas, if you're at home, you're spread out a bit more. You want to be able to switch between users quickly. You want additional security in there. You want to be able to manage the projectors, through Active Directory and other things like that. So all of that integration actually took us several years, where it seems trivial, where I just want to be able to display, but yet, all of the complexities behind it, and be able to make sure that all of that is ready for IT shops to be able to deploy. It took quite some time.
Indeed. So a lot of exciting things going on. I know that people would be very interested in your presentation. In the meantime, where would people go on the internet to find more information about some of the topics we've discussed?
Yeah, so certainly there's a wealth of information on overall Intel.com, but if you go on to Intel.com/vPro, and vPro is our flagship premier enterprise business platform. There's a lot of information and videos on there on what I speak of.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Andy.
Great to be here, Andy.
Thanks to you folks as well for continuing to follow us here at HP Discover in Barcelona.